Hey, this is David from Soilwork and the Nightlight Orchestra, and you're listening to the Dan Chan Show on the Hard Rock Hell Radio.
Hey, David, how's things going?
Fine.
You good up in Sweden?
Yeah, as good as it can be with the Corona thing and the upcoming winter, but
yeah,
we're getting used to it.
Harsh winters in Sweden. I was going to ask you, how's your year been up to now with the pandemic and everything?
Well, it's been a strange year. I guess here in Sweden, authorities took a bit of a different approach, and so we haven't had any lockdowns yet. But I mean, it still affects all parts of society. Personally, I'm also working as a doctor at a hospital, so I'm in the midst of it, and I've had it myself as well back in March.
Yeah, same. I had it early in the year over here in Spain.
Yeah.
So you're the first doctor. Are you a fully fledged medical doctor? I didn't know this.
Yes, I'm an MD, PhD.
Wow, the first doctor on the show.
Wonderful.
So just off the record, then you must be really busy to it now.
I'm a gastroenterologist. So, my work is pretty much the same as usual, but we're always busy.
Yeah.
The patients never stop needing us. So
wow.
But it's fun. Okay. I love my work as well.
Okay, back to your other day job then, Soilwork. So you're releasing EP A Wisp of the Atlantic on the 4th of December. And it's been nearly 2 years, near enough, since your last album. Why an EP this time?
Well, it was... it started out with me, like after the last album, Verkligheten, we all had a great time doing it. And we were all really pleased with how it came out. And there was such a great creative atmosphere in the studio and a really nice, overall atmosphere with this lineup of the band. So I felt it would be a shame to wait for another couple of years to start doing new stuff. So I just got inspired and started writing a few songs, starting out with Feverish, the first single, just as like a non-album standalone single release and with a video. And then I came up with Desperado and Death Divina, and we did videos for those as well. And there was like sort of a common theme throughout those three videos, and then Corona hit and everything, and we just wanted to keep going.
Yeah.
Since we realized quite early that we weren't going to be able to play any shows this year, so we might as well do something creative and
make the most of it.
And and I had this idea and dream for a long time to write a long, epic, progressive song.
Well, I was just going to come on to
with
that.
Soilwork,
A Wisp of the Atlantic comes in at a whopping 16 and a half minutes, and you mentioned that the track was a way of showing off what the band is capable of. I mean, you certainly achieved it with that track. Was it difficult to write?
No, not really. I mean, I've played all kinds of music and written all kinds of music before, and with my other band, the Nightlight Orchestra, I've written a few epics as well. So it was more the challenge was more about trying to find a nice flow throughout the thing, so it didn't feel like contrived or like you want to sound natural, even if you go from like almost jazz to blast beats and a lot of stuff in between. And the challenge was mostly just arranging it and coming up with it's never hard to come up with ideas, but it's always hard to make it sound natural. If you're going to pull off a 60-minute song, it has to be interesting and not too repetitive, and you have to have nice melodies and chorus sections in there as well. I mean, I love lots of the old classic progressive rock bands like Yes and Genesis, but I mean, I really love them mostly for their epic songwriting, not so much for, the just prog for prog's sake is not really my thing. But the way those bands became huge because they had fantastic songs and melodies and just that they decided, they presented it in a very epic, progressive, long form, long format.
Do you think you'll perform it live?
We could. It's not like we don't have any like orchestras or strange stuff on there. We do have a guest trumpet thing and some
it's a cool track.
Cello, but it's I mean, we could definitely perform it live if people seem to like it, and if we someday will be able to perform live again, then I would be up for it.
It's cool. That'd be good to see.
But it's going to be difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, once if we get to, I don't know when that's going to be. I'm a bit pessimistic. I think it's going to take a while. I mean, going from this, I mean, with half of Europe in full or partial lockdown, and going from this to like cramming a nightclub full with like 900 sweaty, drunk people without air condition. It's like there's going to be a long transitional period before we can go back to touring the way it used to be. If we ever will be able to do it, it might change permanently.
One of the questions I've got is: do you think have you got plans for 2021? Do you have gigs in the pipeline?
Yeah, absolutely. We have. I mean, all of the festivals. I mean, we had a quite intense summer festival schedule all over Europe, both with Night Flight and Soilwork, and I mean, obviously they all got postponed until next year. So we have that, and we have a few tours with both bands that are pretty much booked. But I mean, still, I mean, I'm not really depending on anything happening. But we'll see. I mean,
we'll
I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, we all
but
do.
Even if we get a vaccine, it's still going to take a while to distribute to all over to everyone in Europe, and it still won't give 100%
coverage.
No.
So going back to the EP, the Feverish Trinity comes to a conclusion on the EP. Can you explain the concept behind that? Because the videos are brilliant. It's a brilliant watch.
Thank you. Me and Renee Valdes, the video director, we've done quite a few things together by now, and I usually come up with the basic ideas for the script, and he develops it. And I mean, it's a very loose theme, but it's more like you go from one set of emotions to another. You start out with a feverish thing, which is like when emotions take hold of you, and it's almost like being possessed by some supernatural being, and then the next step is like desperado, when things get out of hand completely. And then Death Diviner is like when you sort of like realize what you've done and try to atone for it, and perhaps find a new direction in life, and then it continues onto the nothingness and the devil, which is also like connected, where you like you decide to get rid of the old gods and the old truths and everything that has had an influence on you without you really knowing. Like, we're all indoctrinated in some way by a lot of things that we really can't control when we grow up, and how you could get rid of the old gods and sort of become your own god instead. And there's a bit of a feminist theme in there as well, and a bit of emasculating the male god on the throne. And then the video for A Wisp of the Atlantic is about taking the next step, like entering a new world, and how to deal with the alienation of that.
Yeah.
So it's like a. It sounds going to sound really pretentious, but it's like a sort of like a spiritual journey.
Yeah, I get that.
All the 5 tracks.
Yeah.
And all the videos like tied together. So I mean, if you want, you could watch them as one long.
Exactly. Yeah, it's great. Love it. And so, concept album wise, what's your favourite concept album? Because I mean, there's some crackers out there. What's your favourite?
That's a good one.
It's a tough one.
I guess the one that I listened the most to growing up was The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway.
Yeah.
I mean, most of those Gabriel era Genesis albums were concept albums in a way, and I've always been really inspired as I love writing lyrics and love writing all kinds of stuff, and I usually write all our like press releases, just babbling about.
Coming from the heart. I saw the press
release. I was really inspired by you know, when Peter Gabriel wrote all kinds of strange stories and just random things on the vinyl sleeves, that just kept your. I mean, it really woke up your imagination.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
that's something that still inspires me. And then I have to sit in interviews and try to explain why what I really meant.
So you joined the band in 2012. However, you've been fully involved in the band before becoming a fully fledged member, right?
I did my first tour with them in 2006. It was a US headline tour.
Right.
The last one we did after establishing the Roma, and that was when Peter left for the first time. Peter Witchers, the previous guitarist, and they were trying out different people, and I didn't get the job back then. But I mean, that's when me and Björn became friends. I mean, I became friends with both guys, but me and Björn stayed in touch, and we started the Night Flight Orchestra a couple of years later, and I continued to play with them as a session live guitarist on and off until 2012 when Peter left for the second time, and I became a full-time member. So I was not involved in the writing process before the Living Infinite, but for that album I basically wrote half of the album, and they knew I was a songwriter, and Björn and I had been writing stuff for Night Flight before I joined, so it's they knew what I was capable of, and since we all knew each other quite well by then, it was a quite seamless transition. It wasn't they knew
who you
what
were.
They could expect.
Easy to get you in. And do you write everything now yourself? Are you exclusive on that?
On this EP, it's all me, both music and lyrics, but it's not like it's a conscious or premeditated decisions. More like everyone was busy doing other things, and I just kept writing, and I mean, no one else did, so it sort of became this huge ego trip, but it's not like that was something that I wanted. It just turned out that way, and I mean, the last album was me and Björn did 50-50 of the writing. I mean, Sven and Sylvain, the keyboard player and the other guitarist, they're great songwriters as well, but for some reason their wells have dried up a bit lately. Hopefully they'll start writing again for the next album.
That'd be cool.
Which we're planning to start record sometime early next year.
That's cool. Great. Good news. So I think Soilwork is like a box of chocolate. You know, there's something for everyone that likes rock and metal. Do you agree with me?
Absolutely. I mean, I really like for ever since I joined, I guess I've been one of the driving forces behind trying to experiment a bit more and try to push the boundaries and do some still heavy metal at the end of the day, but you can still try to find some interesting stuff to do within that context and you know, combining. You'll always need a distorted guitar and some double bass drums. You know,
blast beats.
But
come from nowhere. They come from nowhere.
I love blast beats. But trying to combine stuff like having a really melodic chorus over a blast beat, or you know, having a strange progressive experimental guitar solo over a odd meter, but still making it sound
Now, imagery is very strong with the band, having some great album covers. Do you guys have a say in that, or is that down to management or anyone else?
No, it's always us. I mean, fortunately, Nuclear Blast, our label, they pretty much trust us and let us.
It's the best way.
Yeah, I think they know that we've been around and that we know what we're doing. So it's not like they never off the record. I think we're one of the few bands that they don't need to hear demos before we start doing an album or recording an album, and they don't really interrupt the recording process because they know it's going to be
full respect. David. It's full respect.
It's going to be Soilwork at the end, and it's the same with artwork and everything. We come up with the idea, and of course they have to okay it in the end. I mean, but it's at the same time we're most of us are quite reasonable person, so it's not like we would come up with something totally Cannibal Corpse level outrageous, which wouldn't fit us anyway. so no, we have a good working relationship with the label. It's more that they have trust. The only thing they have opinions about which song to release as single first, etc. But I mean, that's fine, because they're all our songs, and since we decide that they're good enough to include in the album, then it's no big deal if the label wants to choose which one we should release in what order, etc.
So your other band was singer Bjorn, the heavily 80s themed The Night Flight Orchestra. How did that all come about? Because it's very, it's a little bit different to Soilwork.
No, but that was during the first tour in 2006. Because I didn't know them before that tour. I just saw an ad like on Blabbermouth, and I hadn't been playing for a long time, really seriously. I was busy in med school and becoming a doctor and stuff. Once you're a musician, it's really hard to, you always feel that pull to. I mean, you want to be there on stage and you want to write songs and record stuff. And so when they announced that they were looking for a replacement or potential replacement for Peter, I just answered an ad. And back then I was living down in the south of Sweden where the others lived also back then. So I just sent in a few samples of my guitar playing, and I just went for an audition, and I got the job for that US tour.
Cool.
And I mean, me and Björn bonded straight away over like classic rock and all kinds of
AOR, classic rock,
70s, 80s music, not just AOR, just stuff like early Kiss and I mean, pretty much we just discovered that we had a lot of the same influences and a lot of the same roots, and not just with classic rock, but also like metal and all kinds of pop, and so it was like we kept in touch after that tour, and during that tour we decided that someday we need to start a classic rock band together, because back then no one was doing what we are doing now with the Night Flight Orchestra.
No.
So I think we did our first album back in, was it 2011 or 12, and back then it was really no one really knew what to do with us, because I mean we got turned down by all the big companies like Nuclear Blast, and they all loved it. Obviously we had a lot of contacts in the industry when we sent it to them, and all the big label guys we knew, and they were like, this is great, but we don't know what to do with it. It's so strange having a bunch of metal guys playing classic rock. So we signed to a real tiny Italian label who were big friends of Björn's, and did it for a minimal budget. And then after the first two albums, Nuclear Blast actually asked us if we wanted to sign with them instead, and that was when we became a proper like touring band, and we got a management and a booking agent, and things got a bit more serious. But it's still like a labor of love. I mean, we still do it because we think it's fun, and it's a great outlet to just
have fun.
Have fun and do whatever you want. And it's like I usually say we don't take ourselves seriously, but we take the music very seriously.
Do you find the writing ever bleeding through from band to band, or do you have one hat and another hat sort of thing?
It's a very the answer is very like prosaic. It's more that in Soilwork we have down-tuned guitars. We tune down to B, whereas in Night Flight we have standard tuning. So I have a few guitars, and it depends on which guitar I choose. If I sit down with the Soilwork guitar, which is like detuned, then I obviously start playing more metal stuff. Whereas if I sit with my standard tuned guitar, it's usually Night Flight stuff. And with Night Flight, I write a lot of Night Flight stuff on keyboards as well. But so it's mainly down to which guitar you pick. So if I'm gonna write songs to Soilwork, just pick the metal guitar. So it's with Soilwork you need to have some sort of riff in there. Whereas with Night Flight, you can, as long as you have a good melody, you can also build stuff around it and arrange it. Whereas with Soilwork, you need still to have some sort of like metal. So it's more riff based.
Just
and
chuck
more
a blast
guitar-based.
beat over the top of it; it will sort it out.
Yeah.
So David, what's your proudest moment within the industry up to now? A special show or a certain moment that just made you go, "God, I'm here. I've done it."
Well, I mean, there's been so many. Considering the fact that I was like, I gave up on music in my early 20s, and because I had a band back then, and made a few records on a small label in the US, and expected to become a rock star, and then nothing happened, and I had to work as a guitar teacher, which I really hated. So I decided to get a real job instead and went to med school. So I after having like given up on music and being able to joining Soilwork was a big moment, and also building the Night Flight Orchestra from scratch into something it's not like we're Coldplay or Iron Maiden, but we still have a decent crowd and a decent following, and that's really hard these days. You know, if you look at how the state of the music industry, it's like the industry is like they don't have much money, and you can count on tour support and stuff like that these days. So being able to build up the Night Flight Orchestra into what we are today without it's I'm still proud that we've been able to do that. And then, of course, I mean, there's always stuff that you dream about when you're a kid that you never thought was going to happen, like, being in the American guitar magazines like Guitar World and Guitar Player, or
so cool.
Playing classic venues like the Whiskey A Go Go and stuff like that in LA, and also the really big festivals playing at Wacken to like 70,000 people. It's like a bit overwhelming. So
Goosebumps.
so there have been a lot of like pretty
big moments. So for Soilwork fans, we can look forward to a new album at the end of next year, maybe. Fingers crossed. Excellent. Dr. David, thanks so much for joining me on the show. It's been great chatting with you, and good luck for the future.
Thank you.